I'm here with a very awake Anthony Paone.
Hi.
It's 10 o'clock p.m. Things have been pushed back a lot.
My bedtime is in 45 minutes.
Yeah, Anthony's an old man. Izzy, however, Izzy's show is young and spry. Hi, Izzy.
Hi, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Now that's a good joke.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be here all fucking night.
Yes, all
I'm a
night.
Student.
Yeah, no, I have to. As we're recording this, I am getting ready to go to PAX East. I'm hopping on a plane tomorrow, and I'm staring at my empty briefcase at my empty suitcase right now. So this will be a fun night. I probably have to edit most of this tonight. So I'm looking forward to not sleeping because we're going to talk about James Gunn today. In case you didn't hear, James Gunn, I remember I was washing the dishes and I got a push notification. It's just casually like, James Gunn reinstated as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 director.
He's back, baby!
So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of jump back on our older conversation. We did an episode, I think it was episode 8 or something like that. We're at 43 now. Oh man, time flies. But we did a Confronting James Gunn's Legacy episode, and we kind of went back through James Gunn's history as a filmmaker. I feel like that episode, that was kind of us in our earlier days doing the show, so I feel like I didn't do a good enough job kind of explaining, like we just kind of jumped into Slither and Super and stuff like that and Trauma without really defining like what those were. Like we didn't really track his, we didn't really detail his career, I feel. But if you probably like to look through his Wikipedia page, you probably understand, he started at Trauma Entertainment. He kind of did all these crappy Z movies with Lloyd Kaufman, who was kind of his mentor. They're kind of like, how would you guys describe those Trauma movies? Help me out here.
Edgy, but like not, like, I think it's important to kind of distinguish the difference between what we would think of as edgy now versus edgy then. I mean, edgy then is still, like, bad, but, like, edgy then was much more, like
shock and awe?
Shock in the sense of, like, it's the 90s, so a lot of things were considered shocking that aren't necessarily shocking now. Like, Grand Theft Auto in the 90s was edgy. Right. And like Mortal Kombat,
the
was
Hauser
edgy.
Brothers,
like
it's subversive is the word we use.
Yeah, subversive. So like gory, violent, sexual. I mean,
taboo humor.
So like, like religious parody.
I mean, like, this is just what edgy is. Like anything that wasn't the norm.
Yeah, but but I feel like edgy nowadays has a different connotation that I think it's important to kind of distinguish, like, when people think about it in their head. Like, edgy humor now is like, transphobic jokes, which are, like, bad, or, like, trolling on the internet, which is exhaustingly awful, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's... shock value doesn't really work in today's fiction and films and stand-up and whatnot. Like I feel like movie 43, which not coincidentally, but James Gunn had a part in movie 43. He directed one of the segments. I feel like that was kind of the last mainstream shock value comedy nonsense, I feel. Feel free to disagree if I'm missing anything.
No, I would say so.
Yeah, like those parody movies, like Scary Movie, or like Vampire Suck, I remember seeing it.
Epic movie. Disaster
Friedberg
movie.
and Seltzer, the two worst, the worst filmmaking duo of the modern era, I would
like
probably
those
say.
Those movies, I think, in our modern era are dead.
Yeah, but I mean, even those movies, like, I feel like a lot of it wasn't shock humor. It was more like, hey, remember that thing?
There's better things that make me laugh. I don't need to see this,
But when you look back at some of the things that people kind of criticized James Gunn for, there was, not only the jokes that kind of reference to that they kind of made light of pedophilia, but you might have seen pictures of him, say, at a party, and his costume is like that of a pedophile priest, for example.
Now that's pretty edgy. That's pretty edgy, and I feel like that's a joke that someone has made recently.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to ask, in the months that have passed from James Gunn's firing to his rehiring, did anyone think back and maybe kind of went up and down on your opinion of him as a person, or did you kind of like stay, were you like still with him? I know like Anthony, you stuck with the hashtag rehired James Gunn crowd. Is that correct?
Yeah, it hasn't really changed in that front. You want me to continue with this? Like, I can continue talking. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I want to hear that perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not really like solid on a lot of camps. I'm gonna explain my weird, ambiguous position in a bit, but I want to hear from you first.
It's kind of like this. I mean, like, James Gunn is a person of power and like has some level of power, but it's like if you want to like destroy like horrific foundational issues in society, it's not by attacking an individual, it's by attacking a system, which is something that I've talked about many a time.
Sure, yeah.
And combined with the fact that they're in a society, in a future society that I believe in and hope we can achieve to. I believe in a form of redemption and reforming an individual in some capacity, in the sense that people can develop and change and become better people. It's kind of like the cool and interesting parts of Christianity, the ones that are not the bad stuff. Even though that I'm not Christian.
Like actual Christianity.
Yeah, like the idea of like
Catholic.
absolving oneself of their past issues and becoming a better person, and actually working to be a better person is important and necessary in society.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't like to necessarily use that because people like to use that when confronting Nazis, which is like a bad way to use that phrasing. But yeah, that type of thing.
What, like tolerating intolerance?
Yeah, that no, fuck that. It's kind of like when you're dealing with there is a level of nuance to it. So Harvey Weinstein is someone who is in a massive position of power, who did horrific things and did not absolve himself of those horrific things. Therefore, the shaming and ultimate takedown of that individual is a systemic change, not a massive one, because he is one part of a massive systemic problem. But he has a lot of power.
Right, even though it was one person, it was a very
powerful,
influential person.
And that's an important thing when tackling like this type of thing of like individual and system type of thing. Is how much power that individual has. It's not saying, oh, the individual did everything, and it's not like, oh, the system is not at fault at all. It's just it's just what happens. It's none of those things. It is a combination sometimes of that.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's why these waters are so hard to navigate, because everyone has kind of a different background and story different position in this. So, it's part like, oh, we're making this one guy an example, but it's also a big part is like, hey, Weinstein's actually a very big name in the industry.
Exactly.
So.
And to kind of, finish my point on specifically Gunn, when you're, I'm a person that kind of believes in, not necessarily kicking someone out of society unless, they're an actual fascist. And that people can, grow and become better and actually become a concrete member in society. Because you can't just kick everyone out who's horrific in some capacity. There's personal issues that are obviously, a problem, but there's nuance. We can talk about it on the internet another time, but James Gunn has specifically had a significant amount of regrowth and redemption, and his art specifically shows that, especially with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Do either of you remember the BuzzFeed profile from like that came out around Volume 2? Do either of you remember that enough to kind of recap kind of what you got from that? Because I was kind of skimming through it again.
I think we talked about it when we covered our episode on this about how Volume 2 and Volume 1 both had stories of redemption and character growth and type of things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, do you remember what it said about his upbringing, like his background? Because I saw people kind of trying to, like, going back to that, he dressed up as a pedophile priest, like, people trying to justify that, like, maybe he wasn't abused, right? But he grew up in an environment where other people around him were abused. Did I read that right, or did I?
I remember it being, like, very, like, what I classify as, like, simple, like, it was, he didn't grow up, like, in this, like, I grew up near a city, like, Anthony and I both grew up in this, like, near a city, in the city, but, like, I remember James Gunn I think he'd said mentioned, like, he'd grown up in, like, simple, like, Midwestern
Americana.
Like, yeah. And, like, that's, like I said, like, very different from, like, me and Anthony, for example. But, like,
sure.
It was, like, a very, I think, simple life. Like, I remember, I think, him mentioning how, like, he used to make movies with his brothers. And I don't think he really saw, like, the big future that, like, they remember him emphasizing, like, he never really imagined he'd be in this position right now. He was going to quit directing if he didn't get Guardians, and look at him now.
Right.
But yeah, I remember that's when I think that's where he talked about, like, how he related the most with Rocket out of all, like, all the characters in Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Right. He's like a sort of like an outcast, sort of a black sheep, I guess you might call him.
Yeah, definitely.
And people. The reason why I mention this is people seem to kind of explain kind of his edgy humor as, like, that's how he copes with his upbringing. Is how those people kind of took that.
I think a lot of people actually kind of do that exact same type of thing, that they'll use edgy humor as an outlet for being alienated from society due to other means. Whether it be mental, personal, kind of like drug, alcohol abuse, parental, or just general economic alienation, and kind of like dealing with, living in a society that kind of would put you down, not because of generally who you are, just because you're a person living in our society, which that happens to a lot of people. That's why we have a lot of self-help books. But that's another tangent and another story for another time.
Right. I'm skimming through the BuzzFeed piece again. It talks about how there was a priest who was giving young boys in his class alcohol and pornography, and he didn't really understand it didn't really register to him as, like, bad behavior until later in his life. Like, he was so young, he was so innocent, so he didn't take. It doesn't sound like he was directly abused, but I can't imagine that, like, kind of making that realization later in your life, that is, scarring and traumatic in a way. So I'm just wondering if that's like the way the kind of going back in the timeline of this whole thing of, the likes of the alt-right kind of trying to paint James Gunn as if not a pedophile enabler of some sort.
Which is really weird, considering like the stuff that I just learned about 8chan, which is like hive
like that whole side of
neo-Nazis and white supremacists, but is also a haven for pedophilia and child pornography. Which
it's bizarre. 8chan is like really the haven for the people who were too edgy for 4chan.
Why are the white supremacists hanging out with the child pedophiles and the pedophiles and the people that like to post child pornography? It's like, I wonder why.
Yeah, it's. I mean, again, we talked about it in our previous podcast episode about this, but it was kind of, a lot of it was the right trying to get back at the left. They wanted a win on the scoreboard because they had just lost, Roseanne, and Tim Allen's Last Man Standing was canceled, and all of these rights.
But it's not canceled. It's
cable
actually on another
personalities are all
channel.
being,
on Fox.
God damn it, yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, they canceled Brooklyn Nine-Nine and they picked up Last Man Standing.
A switcheroo,
Awful
you could
idea,
say.
but
No, it actually makes perfect sense.
I mean, I guess, yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is better on ABC, so...
NBC.
Yeah, so
NBC.
I think that,
But now, wait, Disney owns Last Man Standing.
Well, they don't own the network. They own the... It's weird. I don't understand, because they do not own the TV network, but they own the TV studio? So I am just... I don't know. This is not a Fox episode, but that's another interesting thing. Yeah, I'm baffled by the logistics of that. But did you know that Paul Ryan is on the board of the new Fox Corporation?
I'm not surprised. like,
Rupert Murdoch hit him up.
Come on. You know how this shit works, Chris. This is capitalism, baby.
It's
Capitalism, baby.
It's so funny. John Boehner is all for marijuana now, just because he's the CEO of some marijuana company now.
That's capitalism, baby!
Financially, yeah. Anyway, enough about the speakers of the House, but instead, let's talk about... I don't think we talked about Nicole Pearlman last episode. Did we?
Did not.
I don't know.
I don't think we did. I don't think we did, but, it's a very interesting factor to...
Did you want to... do you know anything about enough to... kind of give a primer on that, Izzy? Any summary of that?
I do not, but
yeah.
I mean, skimming the articles that you've attached here that you'll probably attach when you.
I found them today, honestly, because it was something that I was kind of ignorant to until I saw some peers of mine, some friends of ours, who were kind of tweeting about, oh man, James Gunn kind of did Nicole Pearlman dirty.
Yeah, it's. I mean, because you bring up a good point, because I remember during the Stuco when I first, I didn't first learn about her from the Stuco. I knew who she was, but, I had to remember her still. You remember that she's the first female screenwriter for Marvel. That was pretty big back then, and she added Thanos, and, that was monumental in and of itself. But,
right.
You still have to remember her, and I think James Gunn gets so much of the credit because he is the director and that whole thing, and we talk about the auteur and how a director can be credited with the shaping of a movie. And for Guardians, it was very much Gunn. So even though Nicole might have written it, James Gunn directed it and wrote part of it and took most of the credit. And I think that's where the separation will go. I think that's where the separation lie. I never really thought there was a beef until I started skimming these, and I was you know what? That's completely understandable, because even for the sequel, Nicole Pearlman didn't really do anything with it at all, but I think we had assumed that she was working on the story for Captain Marvel, and then that got overhauled, so...
Right, I mean, she still got a story by, but it's... The way Marvel Studios works is interesting. I mean, it sounds like they have kind of a writer's program where they have a lot of people who they train, and they probably have them in a room and probably have them at the ready to write first draft. So I assume that excuse me, I'm jumping ahead to someone else, but Nicole Pearlman was in this program, and she probably she did write a first draft on Guardians of the Galaxy when it was just when the idea of Guardians of the Galaxy as a movie was still absurd.
Did she write a draft for Detective Pikachu? Did she know about it?
Did she? I'm not.
Oh well, she is.
You have her
she
credits
is.
open
She
or
is
something?
writing for Detective Pikachu.
Sure. Yeah.
She's
but
that's her
anyway, she wrote a draft, and it's very much proof of concept. And this happens a lot. I mean, for Black Panther, it was Joe Robert Cole who wrote the first draft of Black Panther, and then Ryan Coogler came on, got a co-writing credit, but the difference was that the two of them collaborated. You would see I was looking at the home release of Black Panther. There was the kind of round table of all the Black Panther comics writers, and then you had Nate Moore there, you had Ryan Coogler there, and you had Joe Robert Cole there, as an equal to Ryan Coogler. I don't think it was the same dynamic with Pearlman and Gunn. You know, the articles that I put on that you mentioned, Izzy, they were kind of quoting Nicole Pearlman and James Gunn from different interviews, and Nicole Pearlman was kind of like, oh yeah, like James Gunn kind of did, like, he just added like a lot of the humor and stuff like that, and James Gunn is kind of like, oh, I came in, I rewrote the whole script. There was no Walkman before, there was no yada 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 before. But you know, that's how the WGA, that's how the Writers Guild works. You know, they have to credit both of us, and people kind of took that as a slight against Nicole Pearlman. So it's kind of like it's up to you to decide if there's beef or not.
Yeah, that's very vague.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a lot more evident. Like, there was a similar dispute with 12 Years a Slave between Steve McQueen, the director, and John Ridley, the credited writer. And apparently Steve McQueen really wanted a co-writer credit, but he did not get that. And if you see in the Oscars when John Ridley wins the Best Original Screenplay, you can see Steve McQueen sarcastically clapping. Which looks very petty, first of all, but like,
I mean, they still won Best Picture, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like, you know, a lot of that was like kind of speculation or like rumors and hearsay, and I think the same kind of applies for James Gunn, Nicole Pearlman. So, what, you know, maybe it's people projecting their dislike of James Gunn, but it's also, it could very well be like a systemic, like, hey, here's a woman writer. She's the first female credited writer of the Marvel Studios, and you know, they did her dirty, you know, which I think is totally possible. I mean, yeah, it happened to Pixar, you know, like, you know, like Tony said, like systemic issues, you know, that's something I can totally believe happened.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point with Black Panther and like the round table, because I mean, this happened, like, I'd imagine this is years ago. Like, I don't know what the Marvel writers' room looks like now, but I don't know if they really have that. It doesn't sound like they have that program anymore. Like,
we don't know. They're so secretive.
Yeah, but I mean, from what I'm getting at, it doesn't really sound like it. So
yeah, sure.
I think maybe things have changed.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna look up the Far From Home credited writers, because, like, do you remember how long the list of writers for Homecoming was? It was
oh, dude,
jeez,
if you want to be recent, Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I'm literally going through that right now and trying to figure out Nicole's.
It's like disgustingly long.
Yeah, because like it was Nicole, because I remember it was Nicole Pearlman and Meg LaFave.
Yes.
Wait,
it was Meg LaFave. They both came up with the story of it.
They ended up just getting a story by credit. I think they got pushed back for
they got a story by credit.
And then it was Bowden and Fleck, and then it was Geneva. I can't remember her name. Anthony will look up.
Right. I'm like imagining her name right now.
Yeah.
Geneva
and
Robertson.
Bowden and Fleck.
Doré.
Huh?
Geneva Robertson. Doré.
Yes, that's it. And then Bowden and Fleck, who I could go on and on about because I really do not like them in Captain Marvel, but that's the side. But
yeah, look back to our hot take for that.
Yeah. But yeah, like, that was insane. Like, there were so many hands in the pot. Like, Sabrina mentioned like the plot was all over the place. She hated the first act, and I was like, well, some parts are strong and some parts are really weak, and that's because there were 5 story writers. That's absurd.
Well,
even if one's a duo.
I don't know. I think that story writers just kind of like give story ideas, but then the screenwriters are the ones. But there's also how many screenwriters?
3.
There were 3 screenwriters.
I mean, it's weird because, like, you know, Thor Ragnarok. Because remember, there was a whole controversy with Thor Ragnarok's credits because Stephanie Folsom was not credited, right? I think it's because of WGA standards, but I don't even think she got a story by credit. Again, another female writer who they did dirty, you know. Eric Pearson, Craig Kyle, and Christopher Yost are credited for writing. I don't even think she got a story by, which is a fucking shame.
I don't remember seeing any female credits for Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. There's something very wrong when a major corporation is doing more to protect your interests than your own guild, she says in a tweet. So I guess she blames the the WGA more than Marvel. Interesting.
Which, yeah.
It's fucking weird, the way these guilds work.
No, yeah.
Oh, okay. Story by was Craig, Kyle, and Christopher Yost, and Eric Pearson. Eric Pearson got the sole screenplay by. It's weird because sometimes story by might still be... They might have still written a draft, but there's just not enough space allotted towards them for the actual... I don't understand, because, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp has, like, 5 credited writers. So... I'm not in the guild, I can't tell you how it works. So... Maybe we're just projecting in this whole Pearlman Gunn situation, but you know, it's entirely possible that James Gunn was just kind of like looked at her script and was like, whatever, I'm just gonna scribble my own shit on it. Would that kind of lessen your opinion on him in any way, or do you need to know more evidence?
Well, here's the thing: if she came and did work on Captain Marvel, even after, if anything, malicious happened with James Gunn, then it had to be a higher issue, a larger problem. Not James Gunn is the problem type of thing.
Yeah, he would be I agree. He would be more of a quote unquote scapegoat. I would blame Marvel more for those kind of issues.
Yeah.
Because they theoretically screwed her over and quote unquote let him do this. But yeah, I would blame more of Marvel than I think Gunn in this case.
Sure, or maybe the Guild. Who knows? So it sounds like for both, we talked about the edgy jokes and we talked about the writing credit snafu. Are you both kind of giving James Gunn the benefit of the doubt with both of those situations?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's
hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, I really don't know. I
know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm putting these extreme ethical examples, just throwing them at you and expecting you to answer on a podcast. So I don't blame you for not having a straight answer. It's a weird. People are complicated.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm not gonna go around screaming about James Gunn being evil because of the Nicole Pearlman thing, and that's the hill I'm gonna die on, and the only hill I'm gonna die on, because there's way worse, more systemic problems that are at play that is more important that I dedicate my time to than
fair.
This. Yeah. Not to say that you can focus on more than one, because everyone likes to use that argument. It's you can focus on more than 2 things at once, one thing at a time, and it's yeah, but it's not gonna do anything to me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think for some people it's just the fact that...
And by me, I mean an individual, not me as in white boy Anthony.
Yeah.
Because there's...
Our sole white man representation on this episode.
Yeah. Actually, I am in the minority. I was... Yeah, edgy joke.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to that.
I mean, I was just that's just the thing that terrible people like to say, and I'm just making fun of that.
Oh yeah. No,
ironic
I'm sure
humor.
that'll register.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeet.
Yeah. Well, now that we got that uncomplicated thing out of the way,
and I said my first
ending
yeet,
on a yeet.
I got a yeet out of the way.
Yeah, drink every time Anthony says yeet is the new AP Marvel drink.
No, not this episode.
No.
There will be other episodes. maybe our hot
How about
take
from this point on, drink every time Anthony says yeet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The last thing I was going to say is that maybe people were just more upset about the Nicole Pearlman thing because, like we said in the previous episode, there's some content in those Guardians movies that people can construe to be pretty sexist.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like a double whammy, kind of a spin in the face.
Here's the
hey.
thing. When did we know about these Nicole Pearlman things?
This article was from August of 2014, which is the month the first movie came out.
Okay. Were we talking about it then? Other than, like, the sexist parts in Guardians of the Galaxy? Like, like, I mean, like, I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah.
You know
like,
what I mean?
This seems like a
I'm
typical,
just like...
yeah, it seems like a typical
It's just like, I
out,
feel like it's like a typical thing that kind of happens in kind of, like, big things. Like, Nicole Pearlman is an intern type of thing. And then Marvel gives James Gunn hey, look, here's what our intern did. And then James Gunn is like, oh, I like this. I'm going to write all over this. Like, that's an optimistic look. And the problem in that case is
sure, yeah. I wouldn't use the term intern, yeah. It's like a developmental thing, but yeah, sure. I know what you mean, though.
By a corporation standards, intern. But by a...
Sure, yeah,
I just... It's one leg up from an intern because they get paid.
Okay, yeah, I mean, but still, getting
I know
Hollywood credit.
I know it is.
I don't want to devalue the work that these talented screenwriters, me being trained in the art of screenwriting. I don't want to devalue.
The way that I'm terming it is more in the sense of how a CEO would more look at them, not as we as individuals would look at these people. Sorry, I'm complicating it way more than it needs to be. I'm sorry, y'all.
I get what you mean.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I think we should kind of move on to, since you mentioned CEO, I kind of want to talk about from the top down with Disney's like the logic with this whole saga. So let's recap the whole thing that happened. Cernovich and company, bad people, Mark Cernovich,
Mike,
a lot of people. They unearthed some old tweets.
They archived them. They found it through the Internet Archive.
These people are fucking obsessed.
Wait, let's let Chris tell the story.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, the gist is that these were tweets that, again, like, were gross. They made light of pedophilia. They were just bad tweets. They were like terrible jokes, and James Gunn has like written like weird and like bad articles and essays and tweets before, and he did apologize for this really disgusting and like kind of misogynistic list. I think he apologized, like, I think even before he was hired by Marvel. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So he apologized, like, he at least apologized once. I think this was his second apology. So after Cernovich brought up these tweets again, Ben Shapiro also chimed in, like a bunch of other figures, people like
model citizens,
a lot of people like throwing hands and like voices, and so James Gunn apologized again. And the next day, so James Gunn apologized again. The next day, Disney fired him, which immediately caught wind of the entire internet.
Right. I mean, like, James Gunn did, like, he did have another apology, but he said, like, I understand this business decision. Like, he didn't, like, punch back.
Yeah.
You know, I think where people really got things wrong was when the Kevin Hart controversy with the Oscars, when his tweets came back, when they were, like, really horrific homophobic things. Like, I think it was something along the lines of, like, I would beat up my son if he were gay or something terrible like that. And
yeah.
Maybe he had apologized before, but when he was called on to apologize again, he
like,
did not.
Fuck no.
He was he like had like a bizarre like Instagram video where he talks about how much he loves everyone and yada yada yada. It was a very bizarre way to respond.
Yeah, but that's Kevin Hart. Like, regardless, like that's honestly a bunch of. So I was actually I almost wrote about this for like a paper for school, but basically like since James Gunn, probably seen a lot of other celebrities like also be subject to social media controversies, like Dan Harmon and like Sarah Silverman, and they try to get Patton Oswalt and a bunch of other people. I'm definitely missing some other big names, but like I think Kevin Hart was a very prominent example of like, tweets being unearthed, really bad tweets, and then him losing a job over them. And so James Gunn almost kickstarted like this sort of like, I guess it's very much like social media weaponization. And then
and a lot of that is like these bad faith actors on the right. They are opportunists. They will jump on any opportunity they can because they don't like people. Because, again, they want to chalk one up on the scoreboard for them. They want to...
Kevin Hart was, like, legitimately bad. But, like...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the fact that Kevin Hart could not read the room. And that's why I think the comparison is moot. People who thought it was unfair that people brought that old stuff, like people like, oh, this is just like James Gunn. I was like, no, it's not. Did you see how Kevin Hart responded to that?
Well, I think they're like James Gunn in like how it happened, but I think like my paper was originally supposed to be about like Roseanne, James Gunn, and Kevin Hart, how they all face a similar situation but went in 3 different ways. Like Roseanne reacted with very much very much anger that was really like just
that's very boomer anger.
Yeah,
that's open hostility.
That's a very good way to describe boomer anger. And James Gunn,
Gunn
reacted like with humility, understanding, and like unawareness, like reading the room. Like he understood the decision and like, quote unquote, moved on with his life. Like he got Suicide Squad 2. He's focusing on Brightburn. Is trying to, he's being asked, like, you see the report, I think a report, like, the next week, he's being targeted by several movie studios because, like, he...
Makes good movies?
Disney and... because, like, Disney and James Gunn, like, have ended their partnership. And Kevin Hart's response on Ellen was completely not the right way he should have handled it at all. I'll just say that.
To kind of respond to that in sort of a personal way, if you are like James Gunn also has had like severe alcohol issues as well, and as not someone who's had alcohol issues, but as someone who has done like bad things in the past, and when I am called out for those bad things, I am very, very apologetic for them because I understand the problem for it, and I understand that I tend to be kind of ridiculous in some comments that I say, not necessarily things that I've done recently, but stuff in the distant past, and not necessarily bad problematic things, but like the general over of what I'm saying is not like why would you say that? And it's like, and then I'm it's very remorseful, and I can understand what he was feeling in the moments of his apology. And like
on
that,
Ellen.
No, I'm talking about with James Gunn when he apologized.
Oh yeah.
Like me, I apologized multiple times. He apologized even in between what happened with Mike Cernovich and with like he didn't overtly say like his tweets, but he said like, I've done bad things in my past that like et cetera, that I hope I've done better, etc. Like that type of thing, and those types of comments show an improvement and a way to become better. When you're kind of like approached about these types of things, it's not, conducive to kind of say like, oh, I've changed as a person, or I haven't changed as a person, or show that you basically haven't changed as a person, as with Kevin Hart. But in my personal opinion, I think that the Kevin Hart thing is kind of like this person is like not something we should be focusing on, in the sense of like, once this person is kind of like, is like, we tell people about it, and then it's like, just don't worry about it anymore. If they're off the Oscars, like basically fuck them kind of thing. Like if they want to improve, they can improve, but I don't think kind of like shaming them, like, kind of, beating it into the ground, like, to a pulp is kind of like doing anything. I think there's other more productive things once people point it out.
I mean, Kevin Hart was kind of playing the victim in that Ellen appearance. I didn't see it, so was that kind of the...
Absolutely. I remember watching a news clip of it, and I was like, I see what you're trying to do, and it's not working. But yeah, are we getting off track?
Not really. I mean, this is kind of this is the same culture of outrage. Like, did any of you watch that John Oliver piece about
public shaming?
Public shaming.
Yeah.
I thought that was like, it was kind of an interesting look at like, kind of the weird spectrum.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on that, Anthony?
The one thing I would say that I would argue with that is that like he did a pretty good job. I would say he did not tackle how the system is more at play with a lot of these things, but also he is, a very tiny tentacle of that system. He's, he has a lot of power himself.
Mm-hmm.
I know people gave him a lot of heat and criticism over his Venezuela take, which wasn't necessarily a socialist one or a leftist leaning one. So yeah.
I didn't know how to take that segment at all.
Well,
not really knowing the nuances of a lot of
not necessarily
things.
Great. There's more.
Sure,
there's more kind of.
I believe you.
There's more kind of like people who've are well aware of how imperialism works, and those people kind of we should kind of look at and kind of see what their opinions of it are. His public shaming thing was pretty good about how kind of beating it to the ground is kind of doesn't really do anything or changes the system. It just kind of creates this massive alienation and kind of rejection of people from society. Kind of he talked about Monica Lewinsky, and I think he was talking about the Jay Leno, how Jay Leno will constantly talk about Monica Lewinsky. Chris, you can clarify if that was exact. I can't remember.
That's it. Yeah, that's totally it.
And it's is that it? Why do you keep bringing this up? It's pointless. It's meaningless. This stuff is years old. Get new material.
Jay Leno back in his day was very much a one-trick pony, especially during the O.J. Simpson trial.
Exactly, and
kind of that era.
That type of thing is kind of Jesus freaking Christ. There's larger things at play, and I think I think when it comes to how we tackle things in society, we have to have and here's a big word for y'all. It's the word is nuance, and kind of I think, and people, a lot of people would kind of criticize these certain actions or these certain types of responses, people who would have opinions similar to mine, responses in a negative light. They'll see that in a negative light because of their own personal issues with how certain people in their lives have affected them or how society has affected them. And it's that's fair and understandable. How abuse has happened, how rape has happened to individuals is very traumatizing and very hurtful. But when another individual is a part of that and is not connected to your personal situation, it's it's not changing the system. It's not going to save other women who have been raped, but stopping Harvey Weinstein is an example of actually doing that because he has massive power in it. So it's I understand when I'm making a comment like that, it's not it's not like I'm saying go out and hug your abuser because it's not about the individuals, it's about the system. It's no, that's not what I'm talking about, because that is a you thing. It's about a more of a grandeur public shaming of certain individuals based on certain other things I'm sorry, I'm going off on massive tangents, but do you understand what I'm getting at?
This is good.
It's a more nuanced approach than just kind of a black or white thing. That there are certain that you have to go through things on a case by case basis. Otherwise, it's kind of you just kind of become an authoritarian figure on moral grounds, and that becomes sort of a massive slippery slope when dealing with other things and how society works.
Sure, yeah. Granted, I think there does need to be we should have standards definitely as a society, but
yes,
it does kind of, it plays into, we talked about cancel culture on our Joss Whedon episode.
Yes.
And to make canceled and not canceled being a binary thing, I think that is simplifying it a lot more than it really should be.
Yes, exactly.
So that's kind of why I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to James Gunn specifically. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of peers who just straight up condemn him, James Gunn's canceled, or James Gunn sucks, or whatever. And then I also have peers and friends who are very much you, Anthony, you were Anthony #rehired James Gunn for a while. So the reason why I'm kind of cynical about the whole thing and kind of in between and kind of floating around is mainly because of Disney. Mainly because of Disney as a corporation, mainly because of Disney as a giant force in the industry, mainly because of Disney pulling the strings behind all of this. And, I didn't get all celebratory because at the end, it just seemed like a business decision.
Because it is a business decision.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. And because
that's what Disney is. Disney is the system.
They want money.
Disney is the system.
Yes.
Disney's the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I don't think people were congratulating Disney necessarily, but it was hard for me to kind of separate between being happy for James Gunn getting a job back and congratulating Disney, because
I think about it like this. I enjoy going to Disney World, but I'm going to fucking shit on Disney as much as I want. I'm going to enjoy content that necessarily comes out of Disney to some extent, but I'm going to shit on Disney all the time because
that is obviously that is harder for some people. I totally understand your perspective.
But yeah, I think that's one of the right ways to look at it. Like, being aware of what you're watching. Like, I've run like a bunch of stuff about this. Like, being aware, like, that, yes, like, you're watching, like when you're watching, like, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, like, being aware of the history and the development behind it. Like, that's the best thing you can do, is to have that sort of knowledge and being aware of, like, what you're putting your money towards and supporting.
Yes, I'm sure, but again, I think it's going back to what Anthony says about there being more nuance and being a case-by-case thing, because on one hand, I love X-Men 2, but I hate Bryan Singer, so, like, how do I... And it goes back to the whole Woody Allen argument,
Honestly, that's me, like, I can't morally watch Ghost in the Shell or Bohemian Rhapsody, or, like, I can't remember the last thing, but like those kinds of movies, I can't morally watch.
So here's an example that I like that is used frequently, and it's actually with vegans. It has nothing to do with film or entertainment.
Whoa, okay, bring it on,
So if I was eating like a chicken sandwich and a vegan came up to me and yelled at me, "You shouldn't be eating a chicken sandwich. You're killing chickens, etc., etc." All the problems that are actually within mass farming and animal production and all that other type of stuff that actually is like a massive problem. A vegan attacking me for consuming chicken isn't going to change the fact that chickens are being massively, horrifically kind of created and tortured.
Slaughtered.
and in this massive, conglomerate of systems. It's not going to... Me eating chicken is not going to change that. And 100 more people not eating chicken is not going to change that. It's the kind of understanding of, there's like no ethical consumption under capitalism type of thing. But there's also it's when you have an understanding of that, you can't go into it with kind of like a nihilistic approach, where it's like, no ethical consumption under capitalism, which means I can eat whatever I want, do whatever I want, not give a fuck, because that's kind of like a nonsensical way to live. It's we talked about this when we talked about Captain Marvel and the people that actually attacked us about it. It's we can criticize something because it's constructive criticism. It's good faith criticism. When you have bad faith criticism is when you get people that like to shit on things that are like, because there's a woman in it or because there's a black character in it. Like, that is bad faith criticism. And, saying like, oh, don't criticize the movie because it has a woman in it is not going to be conducive to actual criticism that the movie should be receiving.
Yeah, you hear that, YouTuber? We're not going to mention by name.
Exactly. So it's like good faith criticism is how we should be approaching things, with nuance and with understanding of like these things. You're absolutely right. And it's not like, like, if a coworker of mine eats Chick-fil-A, I'm not going to fucking, like, yell at them that, like, oh, they're a fucking homophobic piece of shit, etc., etc. Like, because, like, oh, they just didn't know, or they didn't hear about it or something. Like, yeah, people just don't know about these things sometimes. But it's like, if you go out of your way to eat Chick-fil-A because you heard about that, then you're a piece of fucking shit.
If you're Mike Huckabee because you're declaring it to appreciate Chick-fil-A Day or something.
Exactly. It's like that type of shit. Like there are bigger pieces of a puzzle at play, and attacking, like when a coworker does something, really like significantly problematic in the office that it affects you. Like, yeah, definitely that's like a thing. But like when like some person like says a comment and then you explain it to them like this is wrong, and it's like, oh, that's okay. But like if you don't go through an understanding of nuance of why that is, then you just kind of cancel them outright. It's like it's not going to and publicly shame that individual. It's not going to change the system. Mm-hmm. Right. And like that comes down to how we approach anger, how we approach our own past trauma, how we approach other things, and all of this is an issue that is constantly changing, is constantly fluctuating, and you have to deal with these things with nuance because it's hard. It's hard to kind of oh, I personally am a victim of not me personally, but like someone, a hypothetical person is saying, oh, I'm a person that has been affected by I was raped as a child, and like these tweets are bringing me back to that. And it's like it's hard to kind of grapple with the fact that like James Gunn isn't going to necessarily, like, yelling about James Gunn isn't necessarily going to fix the problems that are personally affecting me, because the problems that are personally affecting me is that fucking person that did that piece of shit that did that, and also a system that protects and a system that creates and continues to create people like that.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of grapple with that because we don't have proper channels to express those issues and those qualms. Yeah. So there's my rant. I'm off my soapbox. Sorry.
That's fine. No. These are stuff that we need to hear. I feel like I think we didn't really go deep enough into this part of that whole culture in the last episode.
Yeah, and I've also learned a lot in the past year.
I think that's definitely like something. I think this has happened a lot this is everything that's been happening in the past year. Like this really started, I think, after James Gunn. So we're really not just analyzing. We're not just revisiting James Gunn's legacy. We're revisiting like the past. What month is it? March? Yeah, the past 8 months. A baby could have been had in the 8 months since James Gunn was fired.
The James Gunn generation. So I mean, well, go ahead, Izzy. Sorry,
just back to your point about like, I remember like, I guess just to give like my sort of own 2 cents in experience. Like, so I was in an internship, in a resume workshop, and like I'd finished early, and I checked my phone, and I got a notification that James Gunn was rehired. I said like, what? Out loud, because I genuinely did not expect that he would get, because Disney's a business, like as Anthony said, like I would expect them to be the last ones to admit we were wrong and like rehire James Gunn off the bat.
Well, because here's the thing, they're not acknowledging that they're wrong, because like they do horrific things all the time. They pay their workers garbage, like
yeah, like they rehired. I mean, like they rehired Gunn, but like they never, it was announced through Deadline, and like not like the official like Disney outlet themselves. Like it was just broken.
Well, Deadline. To me, it just seemed like it was a safe time for them to make that action.
Too, yeah.
I feel like when they fired James Gunn, it was safe to fire him. Now it is safe to hire him. Now,
yeah, like there was very much a conspiracy, I think, surrounding. Oh, James Gunn was rehired like a couple days before like the Fox merger was closed, because like
there's always going to be
that looked very suspicious. But it was really, but the most interesting thing like to come out of that was like I told like a couple of like the recruiters at like my internship, like, oh, James Gunn got rehired, because like it was, I thought I knew they loved Marvel, and they were talking about how they didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and like all the jokes that like they were like all like, but like they were on the side like they didn't like the jokes and like whatnot, like that, like right. Like that's very surface level compared to like their criticisms, but like that was like just like they they saw it from an artistic standpoint of rehiring James Gunn, which I thought was interesting. But also goes to show you, like, I think it wasn't. Also goes to show you, like, maybe that's an instance of, like, maybe that is not them congratulating Disney for rehiring Gunn, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it is not Disney. It is not Disney. It's not an influential corporation putting their foot down and being like, "We stand with this man. We are going to not tolerate the actions of these bad faith actors."
Yeah.
It was not a moral stand. It was a strategic business decision.
Yeah, honestly, they would have. Honestly, like, they would have looked
that.
so. They would have looked. Honestly, they would have literally looked so bad if, like, sorry, you can fix this, but, like, honestly, I think if they, I think if they hired anyone else, this movie would have not done well. Like, I could not see.
Probably.
I saw a scenario where, like, they're not going to rehire James Gunn, they have to rehire someone else, but this movie will fail, and that's going to loom over the movie. But even if they rehire, like, even if, like, it's a situation where they have to rehire James Gunn to get the best creative result they want. I don't know if I explained that right, but
yeah, it's tough because, like, usually, like, these things happen in the background and, like, general audiences don't notice. But now
people
this
know.
Controversy has probably made James Gunn a household name now.
Yeah, like, he's like, well, yeah, like, I was looking at the Deadline article that broke this, like, James Gunn got literally everything. Literally everything he wanted. Like, he's only doing Guardians 3 after he's done with Suicide Squad 2, which means that, like, it's
called The Suicide
I
Squad.
refuse to call it that. I refuse to call it that until I see an official title card in neon lights and some
fucking
playing in the background.
90s alternative punk band playing in the background. God.
Remember how Shane Black wanted to call Iron Man 3 The Iron Man, but I guess he didn't get his way. But he did make The Predator.
God fucking.
Why is drop the? I want to ask one more question before we get to the fun speculation part, if you guys want to do that, because I need to use the bathroom. But, I feel like Disney has made a precedent. Is it a good precedent of rehiring James Gunn, I guess?
What do you mean?
I mean, I feel like firing him because of Cernovich and company was a bad precedent. That, like, hey, if like, right-wingers can get whatever they want through, like, these actions, I think that was a bad precedent, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm asking about just the action of rehiring him or the entire saga in general, but
I think I understand what you're. Sorry to cut you off. I think I understand what you're asking.
Good, because I don't.
I think I fall more in, and I don't see it as, like, a precedent that they set. I've seen it more as, like, what Anthony said, a strategic business decision. I think it was just them playing chicken, and then they finally decided, okay, we'll give up. Like, I don't think they set any precedents.
I mean, not knowingly, but people are going to look back at this moment when similar stuff is like definitely going to happen. In
like
the future.
honestly, this is just, like, them trying to look good, and, like, there are bigger fucking fish to fry. Like as I said, the fact that they don't fucking pay their workers,
I agree with you,
and that they're a massive media conglomerate, and other massive quarrels with the fact that they're a massive corporation, which is, in and of itself a problem.
Yeah, I've been, like, going back and forth about the Fox purchase because people are losing their jobs, man. No. Like, that is,
like, here's the thing, Chris. It's fucked up. It's just fucked up. Like,
no, all of it is, yeah.
Look, are you gonna not play, like I know you we've all stopped playing Overwatch and World of Warcraft, but, like, I mean, you and me, but I know a lot of people still do. But it's like the Blizzard thing. Like, if you can still play those things and, like, understand that, like, the fact that the head of Blizzard Activision fucking did that is fucking horrific and is a massive problem.
Right.
Like,
He laid off 10% of the workforce of his company.
So who's the fault here? The people that the games themselves, or and the people that make those games, or the person that runs the corporation. The corporation is itself, the system that propagates that corporation. All those types of things are at fault here. I know it's it's hard.
I don't want to do anything that hurts people who are working on the ground.
Yes.
But I don't really. Me personally, I'm not sure.
No, and it's fine. It's fine. It is.
Some people do. Some people have more definitive answers to that question.
I'm not gonna like say you're wrong, because that's dumb and it's pointless.
And that's a good position to have. Yeah.
Exactly. Because
that's a good attitude.
Because in the end we're both tackling the system. And that's that's also a part of what we both believe in. So it's not like I'm not gonna freaking and there's no point to it either. Who cares?
Sure. I don't think Disney. But I don't think really Disney. Yes, I think people are gonna look back at this decision, but people aren't shouting in the streets, "Woo, James Gunn's rehired!" It's just. I mean, I think for us it was oh shit, this happened, but it just came and went. I think I mentioned that James Gunn got rehired, and no one else really knows. I think
right.
I think it's really just a strategic decision for Disney, and that's pretty much it. They did.
Maybe the celebrations were just a social media exclusive thing. Again, there's not going to be parades in the street I think
Disney will be I think when you look back at this, Disney will be overshadowed by the fact that they fired James Gunn in the first place, than the fact that they rehired him back.
No matter what they did after the firing, the press tour for this movie was gonna be freaking weird and uncomfortable. This is gonna be an elephant in the room for sure.
Yeah.
Good luck to them.
Oh, they'll be fine, Chris. You don't have to give them luck. And I mean that in the most fucking passive-aggressive way as fucking possible.
Chris, do you still need to pee?
I need to pee really badly. Did you want to end this episode, or do you want to go into fun, hey, what's going to happen in the cosmic MCU stuff?
Well, it's 11:07. Anthony, how do you feel?
I think it's going to be cool. James Gunn is going to be, doing wacky shit. Probably is going to work on Eternals and stuff. That's it. I'm done. I don't know. Nova, more weird shit.
I don't know enough about the comics.
That's it. That's all we need. Who cares? I'm just going to be excited. That's it.
Yes, let the man sleep. I think it's just a thing I can really touch on for less than 5 minutes. I think I really don't know. We literally don't know what's happening with Phase 3. I don't know if James Gunn will be back as
4, or rather.
Remember, as recently announced, it's called the Infinity Saga.
Oh yeah, that's right. But
Phase 1, 2,
I don't
and 3.
know if James Gunn will still be a consultant, but I don't think if we even really know. I don't think honestly we really even know if MC will explore the comic side, because yes, they've announced the Eternals, but they've announced the Eternals, but I am waiting for them to officially announce a slate, if that makes any sense. And so I
think Kevin Feige has mentioned Nova, said Nova by name. But regardless, I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of like when the actual slate comes out, as you said, Izzy.
The multiple credit scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they were just so forward-looking. They had a setup of the OG Guardians with Stallone and Michelle Yeoh
and Miley Cyrus
and all those people. Miley Cyrus,
and, honestly,
Adam Warlock,
and campy as fuck, and I love it. I would love to see.
But is that going to be a movie? Its own movie? Is it going to be a subsection of the universe? Is it going to be?
Wait! Stop! Hey, hear me out. Stop. Disney Plus series.
No.
Get Stallone on a multi-season deal, and then we're set. But it's I don't. It's such a weird thing to me that like it seemed like that's why his firing was so shocking to me, because it seemed like they had so many plans and they seemed so ahead of even like what the trades have been announcing with like the Eternals and Black Widow and all the sequels coming out. It's like, wait, are you planning like another whole sub universe?
Well, like
just...
I think that's the thing with like a lot of like Disney was the one spearheading the firing. Like I'm not gonna say like I mean like Feige, a lot of power, all that stuff, but like. That's the one little piece of optimism I have, is that Feige wasn't the one, to say, oh, we should fire him.
Yeah, like, Feige was, like, the one, like, Feige had his hands tied for the first time ever.
Yeah, that's probably what I was thinking, too, but, like, what was it? I think, when like, corporations are kind of like, they talk to the actual writers and stuff, it's like, oh, we have this, and this planned. They don't give a shit. They just say, like, oh, we have things planned in the future, and we're just going to run with it. Regardless of what happens to the person, they're just going to keep running with it, because that's what happens. It's happened in multiple other companies and multiple other industries. They don't really care about, absolutely. Like, the artistic merit of it or how cool it would be, because they just want the money in the end.
Yeah. I mean, we always assume that Kevin Feige is... really looking at it from artistic merits and not just a film producer.
Yes, exactly.
Perspective. I mean, okay, so we've made it clear that we do not worship Disney. We do not worship the MCU. They are fallible.
Yes.
Do we worship Kevin Feige?
No, because Kevin Feige's fallible. No. But like, in my little fantasy little head, I'm like, oh, he looks out for the good guy, and it's like, yeah, I don't know how much he gets paid, but he gets, like, I imagine he gets paid a reasonable sum. I don't know.
He has a contract that's expiring along with, like, RDJ and Chris Evans, and, like, Thor, and, like, I don't know if he's coming back. He probably is.
He probably is. Don't tease.
What would he do after this? What is higher up for him?
Retire? I don't know,
DC,
retire to a farm home with his
World
kids.
Of DC.
No, it's retire to a farm home with his kids and raise them in solidarity and like teach them archery.
And then,
it's a
and then all of a sudden, a massive a snap happens somewhere in Africa, and then all of a sudden, all of his kids get erased, and then Kevin Feige has to come out of the shadows once again and defend.
Yeah, and then he says, "Whatever it takes."
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Okay, alright, Kevin Feige's valuable. We do not worship him. Corporations are bad. And James Gunn is a complicated man.
Yeah. Like, I think, like, all people...
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's not really that hard of a thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and who can say... Because, like, a lot of people don't like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah.
So who's to say Volume 3 will be good or not?
Yeah.
I like Volume 2. I understand why people don't, and they are totally valid. I was not like, this movie will live or die by Gunn's attachment to it, but one thing's for sure, it will be more consistent now that it is like the same director for all three.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right.
Is that it, guys?
I ranted a lot in this episode, so I'm gonna be.
Let the man sleep.
Well, like
okay.
It's a topic of conversation constantly when you're talking about like all of these different things. PewDiePie, all these alt-right shitheads. Yeah. I actually had a conversation similar to individual and system type of thing in my office with my supervisor, and he was pretty receptive to it. So it's just like fuck yeah. Cool. So it's just a lot.
Woo! Okay, so Izzy, are you going to have... I think you were trying to work on a written piece for James Gunn.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Is that still correct?
Yeah, I am about to begin writing it today. It is Tuesday. And that'll hopefully be out next week.
Yeah, that's cool. I think... Oh, sorry, I was going to say that, like, I think your piece back in our Marvel News Desk days, it was one of the most read pieces in their site. And it's probably the second most read thing on our AP Marvel Medium blog, besides
how many views does it have?
Lamau!
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, just look back to our Captain Marvel episode where we talk about what happened.
How many views does it have?
I'm not having for me. I'm not gonna look it up right now, but it's in the thousands. But
fuck yeah!
It's absurdly more than we don't like a lot of people who read it anyway.
That is true. Yeah, fuck those people.
Well, the AP Marvel, like I said, is on Medium. We are also on Twitter at AP Marvel. We are also on Facebook. I'm at Compenderizer. Izzy, where can people find you?
I'm at Delirolin.
And Tony, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Pizza Taco, all one word. Yell
Very
at me.
good.
I like it. Give me notifications. Make me feel wanted. Make me feel wanted.
You got some attention when you called out all of the subscribe to PewDiePie people.
Oh yeah, I actually should not have. I should not have done that. Wow, I was just blocking people. It was just so fun.
Yeah, I mean, that was not a great idea.
Oh, it was horrific. It was such a horrific thing to say.
Even though I agree with your tweet,
it's
like, dear God.
And that fits in kind of like that middle thing. It's like, he as a person did not specifically do that, but he did a lot to push for it.
He fostered a culture.
And has a lot of power.
Definitely support that.
Not a lot of power as like Bob Iger, but has a lot of power.
Yeah. Yes. Jesus, we were doing plugs. Anyway, you can subscribe to us.
I'm sorry,
on Apple. No, that was my fault. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Overcasts, Pocket Casts, pretty much every casts app.
Spotify.
Leave us
Go play.
Spotify. Did I mention Spotify? I thought I mentioned. Oh, whatever. But anyway, you can leave us a review, like the one guy who tweeted to us. This podcast has a severe crisis of imagination. Thank you to that person for just saying that and not any other constructive criticism.
Yeah,
we don't like comments like that. We like actual constructive
The only crises I know about is the crisis of capitalism. Ha! Got him!
Maybe he's right. Maybe we do have a crisis of imagination.
Yeah.
Capitalism is bad. The podcast. Anyway, we are on Patreon.
No, we are not that podcast. We literally talk about like a fandom. I don't think that's what that means.
Yes. Gray areas. Please get to our Patreon if you like what you just heard.
Yeah, if you like the words that came out of my mouth. Don't worry, the money doesn't go to me. I don't know why I always have to keep saying that.
You always say that. It's like but, no one's afraid about that.
Self-deprecating humor.
Yeah,
it's so great.
And let me say up front that we don't have enough money in our Patreon to even give the rest of us money. So it's all going to Charles Villanueva, who did the graphics for us.
Nice segue.
Charles, Steve Molitor, who does our music.
Charles and Steve, you guys are the bomb.
Yeah. Also join our Discord because we like having we talk a lot about a lot of the everyday Marvel news coming out, but please engage to us about the actual podcast content in our written content.
If you want to see memes about Ant-Man going in Thanos' butt, come to our Discord.
Okay, yeah. Well, it'll get so big that there'll be like a separate channel just
for. Oh wait, his butt will get so big?
No! God damn it!
This meme is the dumbest meme, and I love it.
Ending this now. That was episode 43 of AP Marvel. Goodbye forever. Izzy should be having a thing soon. I'll be at PAX East.
I need sleep.
If you're gonna be in Boston, if you're in Boston right now, at the time of this, please hit me up at PAX East. Goodbye.
Bye. Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum. Yeah, that was good. Chris, what's going to be the end credit scene for this episode?